At the airport said your ticket was cancelled. Later Mom wrote, "Have a nice New Year's Eve, loser." I wrote, "A surprise awaits you." When they came back, their faces pale. The woman at the airline counter gave me that practiced, indifferent smile. "I'm sorry, sir, but your ticket has been cancelled," she repeated. "Cancelled?" I said, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. "That's not possible. My parents booked this trip for me. I'm supposed to leave today." I handed her my phone with the confirmation email on it, but she just shook her head like she'd seen it 100 times before. "Yes, I see the reservation here, but it was cancelled on December 27th. You'll have to contact customer service if you want more details." My stomach sank. I had no warning, nothing. 2 days ago? What the hell happened 2 days ago? The only people who had control over the ticket were my parents. The whole trip had been their idea. They'd been talking for weeks about how I needed to relax, and how this would be a family New Year's surprise. They said they'd take care of everything: flights, accommodations, even spending money. To be honest, I wasn't that excited at first. But hey, a trip to Europe sounded better than spending another lonely New Year in my apartment. They finally convinced me, saying it was a gift for all the help I'd given them over the years. And now, cancelled. I stepped to the side of the line and pulled out my phone. My dad never texts back quickly, so I went straight to my mom. She usually replies right away. I typed, "Hey, they say my ticket has been cancelled. Is this a mistake?" I waited. No reply. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. The line behind me grew, and the airport noise got on my nerves. Finally, my phone buzzed. I opened it, expecting some excuse or explanation. Instead, all I saw was, "Happy New Year, loser." At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. Maybe she had sent it to the wrong person. But the more I stared at it, the more I realized it wasn't a joke. She really did this on purpose. I felt a wave of anger rise in my chest. They hadn't even tried to explain. Just that one line. After all the crap I'd done for them, helping with their bills, paying off their debts, even buying my mom a new car for her birthday a few months ago, they were still pulling stunts like this. I couldn't believe how cheap and petty they were. They'd dropped hints about how expensive the trip was, but I never thought they'd go this far. I gritted my teeth and typed a reply. "There's a surprise for you when you get back." It was vague enough to make them sweat. Almost immediately, my mother began to call. I let it ring. She called again. Decline. Again. Decline. I didn't give her the satisfaction of an explanation. I tossed my phone in my pocket and walked out of the airport. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but one thing was clear. I was done being their safety net. They thought they could play me? Fine. I was going to hit them where it hurt. Over the next 10 days, I came up with a plan that would make them regret it for a long time. Over the next few days, my parents continued to blow up my phone. I ignored every call and text. My mom tried to guilt me with messages like, "We were just kidding, and come on, it's no big deal. Don't ruin New Year's for everyone." Yeah, right. I didn't fall for it. Meanwhile, I spent those days plotting. The first step came to me as soon as I got home. The car I'd given my mom for her birthday? The one she'd been bragging about like it was her greatest accomplishment? Yeah, it didn't stay hers for long. I still had the title in my name, so I arranged to sell it. I quickly found a buyer, a guy willing to pay cash. I knew the look on her face when she found out would be priceless. But I wasn't done. There was also the joint savings account we shared. It was supposed to be for emergencies, but in reality, my parents had been using it like their personal slush fund. Since I was the main contributor, I had no problem draining every cent from it. Once the money was safely in my account, I sent one last text. "Happy New Year, losers." Then I blocked them. By New Year's Eve, I was feeling pretty good. I stayed in, cracked open a beer, and watched some movies. I knew my parents were probably fuming overseas. Good. Let them stew. I wasn't going to let them ruin my night. But the best part? I wasn't alone anymore. My aunt and uncle texted me out of the blue to wish me a happy new year. They asked if I was okay because they hadn't heard from me in a while. I guess my parents told them some story about me being sick and unable to travel. I almost laughed out loud. I told them the truth, how my ticket had been cancelled and how my parents had basically abandoned me at the airport. There was a long pause after I sent this message. Then my uncle responded, "Wait, they did what?" He and my aunt were furious. Apparently they had planned to meet us in Europe, but didn't know the full situation. They'd assumed I was sick, as my parents had said. Now they were furious, and they weren't the only ones. My cousins got involved too, sending me messages like, "WTF dude," and "That's cold." They were all on my side now, which gave me an idea. When my parents got back, they weren't going to get the warm welcome they expected. My parents must have finally figured out that I wasn't going to answer, because the calls and texts stopped after New Year's. I could almost imagine them enjoying their vacation, thinking everything would be back to normal when they got home. Little did they know, I had a welcome home surprise planned for them. The day they flew back, I got a message from my cousin Melissa. "Hey, they just landed. Are you ready for the showdown?" I smiled. Oh, I was ready. That afternoon, my parents showed up at my apartment. They didn't come alone. My dad brought my sister, my uncle, my aunt, and a few cousins. I guess they thought bringing the whole family would make things easier. Big mistake. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, I could see it on their faces, pale, stressed, and exhausted. My mother was the first to speak. "John, look, can we just talk?" "Sure," I said casually, stepping aside. "Come on in." Everyone filed into my living room. My dad looked around nervously, like he knew something was wrong but couldn't figure out what. My mom tried to play it cool. "We really didn't mean for this to happen. It was just, a little joke that went too far." "A joke?" I repeated. "Canceling my ticket to Europe was a joke?" "Come on, don't be so dramatic," my dad added. "We didn't think you'd react this way. We thought you'd just stay home and relax." "You overreacted." I laughed. "Overreacted? Oh, you think that's overreacting?" I leaned forward. "Okay, then I guess you won't mind the little joke I played on you." They froze. My mother's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I couldn't help myself. I started with the car. "Remember that new car I bought you for your birthday? The one you kept showing off to all your friends? Well, I sold it last week. I hope you didn't leave anything important in it." My mom's jaw dropped. "You what?" "But that's not all," I continued. "You know that joint savings account we had? The one you kept dipping into?" I emptied it. Every last dollar. There was a dead silence. My dad looked like he was about to explode, and my mom's face went from pale to bright red in an instant. Before they could scream, my uncle jumped in. "Wait, hold on. You canceled his ticket on purpose? You told us he was sick." "Yes," I said, turning to my uncle. "They lied to you too. I wasn't sick. I was stranded at the airport." The room erupted. My cousins, aunt, and uncle all began to attack my parents. Melissa muttered something like, "This is so messed up," while my uncle shook his head in disbelief. My mom tried to defend herself by saying it was a misunderstanding, but no one was buying it. Even my sister tried to chime in with her squeaky voice, but no one paid attention. She's barely 5 feet tall, and she always tries to butt in like a referee. But not today. "Enough!" I finally shouted. The room fell silent. I stared at my parents and dropped the last bomb. "I'm done helping you with the mortgage. You can handle it on your own from now on." Now they really lost it. My dad started screaming about how ungrateful I was, how they'd done so much for me, blah blah blah. But nobody in the room was on their side anymore. My uncle even jumped in and said, "You brought this on yourself. That's not how you treat your son." It was chaos. The argument went on for another 15 minutes until I finally had enough and told everyone to leave. My parents stormed out, but my aunt, uncle, and cousins stayed behind to calm me down. Listen, my uncle said after the dust settled, I have an idea. Why don't we go on vacation together? Somewhere warm. My treat. Let's make this right. I hesitated for a second, but Melissa grinned and said, Come on, you deserve it. Let's get past this drama. And so I agreed to go to Hawaii. We made the arrangements quickly, and here's the kicker: we pulled the same trick on my parents. My uncle booked a trip for them, but arranged for their flight to leave from a city 5 hours away. When they called me 2 weeks later to complain about how everything went wrong, I just sent them one last message. Have a nice trip home, losers. Then I blocked them. I thought that was the end of it. We went to Hawaii and had a great time. But when I got back to my apartment, I found a nasty surprise. Hawaii had been perfect: sun, ocean, good company. I could finally breathe after all the family drama. I was actually in a good mood as I walked up to my apartment building, until I saw the car. I stopped in my tracks and stared at the wreckage in disbelief. The windshield and all the windows were shattered. The tires were slashed. But the spray paint hit me the hardest. You shouldn't have moved our property. Bright red letters scrawled across the side of the car like some kind of twisted warning. This wasn't some random act of vandalism. It was personal. I knew exactly who had done it. My parents. A neighbor walked by and gave me a sympathetic look. Man, that's tough. Did you piss someone off? Something like that, I muttered, pulling out my phone to take pictures. Once I had everything documented, I called the police. An officer showed up within an hour, asked the usual questions, and filed a report. When he asked if I had any suspects, I didn't hold back. Yes, I do. My parents. The officer raised an eyebrow, but wrote it down. Any reason why they would do that? Long story, I said, not wanting to get into it right now. I had plenty of evidence, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The next thing I did was call my lawyer, who jumped right on board. We filed for vandalism and property damage. It wasn't just about the car, it was about sending a message. If they wanted to escalate it, I was ready. A few days later, I got a call from the officer investigating the case. We interviewed your parents, he said. They claim they had nothing to do with this. In fact, they say it was your sister who vandalized the car. That took me by surprise. My sister? That was out of the question. Are you serious? I asked. They're really charging her? Yes, the officer confirmed. They say she acted out because of a family dispute. We're looking into it. I knew what this was. My parents were trying to use my sister as a scapegoat. She was only 19, and while she could be a pain sometimes, there was no way she would do something like this. I told the officer that, and he promised to keep digging. Sure enough, my sister was furious when she found out. She texted me that night. I swear I didn't do anything. Mom and Dad are trying to set me up. I'm so done with them. She ended up testifying against them, which made things worse for my parents. They couldn't beat the charges. The court slapped them with a big fine and ordered them to pay restitution. I thought that was the end of it. But a week after the verdict, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my mother. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it and found a handwritten note along with a small package. The note read, "You've made your point. But before this war escalates any further, you might want to open this." My stomach turned. I didn't trust him for a second. Nevertheless, I opened the package. Inside was a single key. I held it in my hand and turned it over, trying to figure out what it was for. No explanation. Just the key. My mind raced with possibilities. Were they trying to lure me into something? Was this another trap? I had no answers, but one thing was clear: this wasn't over. I stood there staring at the key for a long time. It didn't look like anything special, just a plain silver key with no label or tag. No explanation, no details. Just my mother's cryptic message. I debated ignoring it completely, but my gut told me I had to find out. I didn't want to play into my parents' game, but this key had to mean something. I called my sister, hoping she might know something. "Hey, weird question," I said after some small talk. "Did Mom or Dad ever mention a key to you? I just got one in the mail from them." "A key?" she repeated. "No, that's random. They didn't say anything to me, but you know how they are. Maybe it's for something they've been hiding?" Hidden. That word stuck with me. My parents had always been secretive. They liked to be in control, to make sure that no one knew all the details about their finances, their assets, or their plans. Was this key connected to one of their secrets? "All right, thanks," I said. "I'll figure it out." The next day, I couldn't shake the thought. I tried the key on my apartment door, just to be thorough. No luck. Same with my mailbox. I even tried the storage unit in my building. Nothing. I began to wonder if this was all just a mind game. Then, out of nowhere, my aunt called. "John, are you okay?" she asked, her voice sounding a little concerned. "I'm fine," I replied, confused. "Why is that?" "Well, I heard from your mother today. She said that you would finally understand everything soon." I thought that sounded weird. I paused. "Understand what?" "She didn't say anything else?" "Nope. Just that cryptic line. You know how she loves her little power plays." My head was spinning now. What the hell were they up to? Later that night, I dug a little deeper. I remembered that my parents owned an old storage unit across town. They rented it when I was a kid. I hadn't thought about it in years, but I wondered, could this be it? It was worth a try. The next morning I drove over to the warehouse. The place looked run down, almost abandoned, but it was still open for business. I gave the manager the name on the account, and after showing him my ID, he let me in. Row after row of rusty metal doors stretched out in front of me. I finally found the unit my parents had rented, unit number 312. I took a deep breath, slid the key into the lock, and turned it. It fit perfectly. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, cluttered room filled with boxes and dusty furniture. I stepped inside, coughing as I disturbed the stale air. For a few minutes I saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just old junk, an old couch, a broken coffee table, random boxes labeled Christmas, and tax papers. But then, near the back of the unit, I noticed something strange. There was a large, locked metal box. It didn't match anything else in the storage unit. I tried the key again, and to my surprise it worked. The chest opened, revealing stacks of files, photos, and most importantly, a small safe box. I flipped through the files. They were filled with documents, financial records, property deeds, and even legal papers. Some of them mentioned accounts and assets I'd never heard of. My parents had been hiding money and property for years. There was more cash in the safe than I'd ever seen in one place. I sat there for a long time processing it all. My parents had always claimed that they were struggling financially, that they were constantly borrowing from me, but that had been a lie. They weren't broke. They were hoarding wealth behind everyone's back, using me and my sister as their personal bank whenever it suited them. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was a whole new level of betrayal. I took pictures of everything and locked the storage unit back up. When I got home, I texted my mom one last time. "I found it." Her reply came within minutes. "We need to talk." But I wasn't in the mood to talk this time. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. I now had leverage and I was going to use it. The money hit my account that night, every penny they had borrowed from me over the years, plus a little extra. It was almost as if they thought paying me off would magically erase everything that had happened. But money wasn't really what this was about anymore. I sat on my couch staring at my phone as message after message came in from my mom. She was trying to negotiate, trying to explain. My dad had gone silent, probably thinking that silence was his best strategy. The truth was, I didn't care about her explanations anymore. I had the answers I needed. They'd been hiding assets, lying, and using me for years. I didn't need to hear any more excuses. The last message I read from my mother said, You don't know the whole story. Family is complicated. We were protecting all of us. One day you'll understand. Understand? Protect us? I laughed bitterly. This was their justification? Taking advantage of her own children under the guise of family responsibility? Later, my sister called. I heard about everything, she said, sounding exhausted. Yeah. It's been a ride, I said, rubbing my face. Mom's freaking out, she continued. She keeps saying that you're trying to destroy the family legacy or some such nonsense. But honestly, I don't blame you. I would have snapped too. You're not wrong. I sighed. I'm done with them, Katie. Forever. I'll keep in touch with you, but them? I'm out. No more talking, no more helping, no more being their safety net. If they want to dig themselves out of their mess, they're on their own. I understand, she said quietly. I'll probably take a step back too. You've been using me for years. I'm tired of it. I want to live my own life without their drama hanging over me. We talked for a while after that about her plans, her school, how she wanted to move out of state and finally stop relying on their support. It was one of the best conversations we'd had in years. For once, there was no guilt, no manipulation, no tension between us. We were just two siblings trying to figure out how to heal from all the damage our parents had done. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment and let it all sink in. I thought back to all the times they'd guilt me, all the times they'd claimed to be struggling while secretly hoarding money. I remembered standing at the airport, humiliated and stranded because they had cancelled my ticket as some twisted joke. They thought they'd always be in control. But now that illusion was gone. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. A few days later, I received a final message from my mother. We are still your parents. Family is forever. You'll come around eventually. I stared at it for a long time before I blocked her number. Then I went into my contacts and blocked my dad as well. I deleted every old message thread from them, every reminder of their manipulation. For the first time in years, I felt free. From then on, I kept my distance. My sister and I stayed close, and over time our relationship grew stronger. We checked in often, made plans to visit, and talked about everything from work to life goals. Without our parents pulling strings behind the scenes, we could finally be honest with each other. As for my parents, I didn't hear from them directly again. Occasionally, relatives would bring up rumors how my parents complained that I abandoned them or how I was ungrateful. After all they'd supposedly done for me, I let them talk. I didn't feel the need to defend myself anymore. The funny thing is, I used to think that cutting ties with them would feel like losing something. But it didn't. It felt like freedom. I wasn't carrying their burden anymore. I wasn't their pawn or their ATM. I was finally living on my own terms.